If you're here for the classic SCP story, just sit right there. If you're here for a quick summary and an explanation, go to that time frame. Good day everyone and welcome back. Today we are discovering a new gen SCP that, as of now, has not been covered anywhere else. This is fresh stuff. Big up the patrons who keep this channel going, special thanks to the council members and administrators. A quick word from SCP-999 and we will get started. Look at this, it's 999! The cute little orange blob is now a soft cuddly plushie. The lads at Fallen Foundry have been working very hard and we now have our own 999 plushie. If you would like your own tickle monster, then just follow the link below to the SCP shop. You'll be supporting the little guys and help to grow the SCP shop that we've all been working on. So yeah, hit up the shop using my link and get your own squidgy 999 plushie now. Description: SCP-6051 is a humanoid entity formerly known as Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov of the 3rd Guards Rifle Division. The entity is 6'3" in height and suffers from severe albinism. Despite being born in 1909, SCP-6051 has not shown any visible signs of aging since 1941. The subject possesses potent cryokinetic abilities. The subject's internal body temperature has been recorded to be as low as -5 centigrade. The subject is capable of lowering the temperature of its immediate surroundings to -50 degrees centigrade. With concentration, this effect can be amplified to being able to almost instantly freeze an object or individual within 1 mile and when within SCP-6051's line of sight. SCP-6051 effects can be hampered and even completely stopped with high temperatures. According to GRU-P testing, temperatures of 600 to 800 degrees centigrade or less did little to impede the subject's capabilities. Temperatures of 1000 degrees were shown to be effective at slowing down SCP-6051, though this could be overcome given enough time and concentration on the part of SCP-6051. Only temperatures of 2204 degrees centigrade and above were capable of completely stopping the subject in its tracks. Special containment procedures. As of right now, SCP-6051 cannot be contained, and all attempts to do so are to be postponed indefinitely. The subject's movements are to be observed via satellite, while Foundation monitoring stations within Siberia are to observe for any abnormally low temperature shifts in the region. In the event SCP-6051 is observed moving towards a populated area, MTF Epsilon 6, the village idiots, are to intercept and draw the subject back into a more sparsely populated area. In the event this fails and the subject does enter a populated area, MTF Epsilon 9, the fire eaters, and MTF Pi 1, the city slickers, are to be deployed to force the subject to flee. All witnesses are to be amnesticized, and a cover story regarding freak snowstorms is to be circulated through the media. Addendum: History and Origins of SCP-6051. These documents are a collection of GRU-P documents provided during the initial containment efforts of SCP-6051. These documents outline the creation of SCP-6051 and the history of Project Red Flea. Regrettably, a number of additional documents appear to have been destroyed in 1948. OSI Silent Night Division P, 11th of March 1935.
OSI Silent Night is the designation of a previously unknown villa, the equivalent of a fairy in Western cultures, which has been frequently cited and documented by both high and low-ranking military personnel over the last century. The most notable characteristic of Silent Night is its endothermic properties, causing the severity of winters to increase near it. First recorded officially by Grande Armée and Imperial Russian forces in 1812 during the French retreat from Russia. Precise physical characteristics vary from each account. The only 3 consistencies between all are as follows. The body of Silent Night emitted no heat whatsoever, only cold. Being blindingly white, only noticeable during the winter due to its frequent movements and the amount of smoke and dust in the air thrown up by combat. Silent Night was recorded as emitting faint giggling noises. Its presence at major battles has been theorized to be due to excitement over observing the combat involved, providing a possible explanation to the noises emitted by Silent Night. Its effects on its surroundings are theorized to be unintentional. Silent Night was successfully restrained by the use of a pagan binding ritual, as all efforts at physical restraining have failed. Silent Night is currently bound to a large granite rock at the secure site codenamed Vera until long-term holding can be established.
Proposed uses: agricultural improvements. Rejected.
Assuming that control or cooperation is possible, Silent Night could be used to improve farming conditions in Siberia and in turn increased agricultural output, as it may be capable of redirecting colder temperatures away from our farmlands, as well as shifting our main food source from Ukraine to further east, where it would be safer in the event of war. Concealment of this considered too costly, along with long-term ecological ramifications of such a radical environmental shift, and there is nothing to indicate Silent Night is capable of absorbing the cold, only causing it.
Large-scale military usage. Approved.
Silent Night has been shown capable of driving back entire armies when excited. If such excitement could be focused, we could cause sudden shifts in the weather and harsher winters, thereby slowing down any invading army if not outright stopping them in their tracks. Long live the Soviet Union.
Project Update Division P, 5th of May, 1938.
With the rising tensions in Europe, it is the belief of the General Secretary that the military potential of Silent Night must be further considered. To this end, additional military funding is to be granted. Furthermore, all Silent Night research staff are to be reassigned to a new project. Its official designation is to be Project Red Flea. The aim of this project is to assess and fully utilize the military capabilities of Silent Night. Any additional research must be with the aim of furthering this goal. Any research efforts that are not outlined in Appendix A must be approved by GRU-P Command and/or the General Secretary. Long live the Soviet Union.
Project Update Division P, 8th of April, 1940. The following is a response to a recent update on Project Red Flea.
At this moment, all efforts at communication and cooperation appear to be impossible. If Silent Night is capable of verbal or written communication, it does not have any interest in doing so. As outlined in earlier research notes, the only discernible reaction that can be truly observed is excitement when combat and warfare are near. The reason behind this is unknown. 2 solutions have been proposed.
Improve communication efforts. Rejected.
If we can figure out precisely how Silent Night communicates, then perhaps we can convince it to work with the GRU-P. The fact nothing has come from nearly 2 years of research makes it clear this is an act of futility.
Binding Silent Night to a human. Approved.
Several of the staff have proposed a radical but possibly effective solution, as it has been proved that Silent Night can be bound to a physical object and can affect the temperature of and the area surrounding said object. It has been theorized that binding it to a human would allow the usage of its abilities. Before we can begin the binding ritual, a physically fit and ideologically loyal individual must be selected as the host. No records of this being attempted in the past have been found, so the risk is great, but we will take every precaution necessary to ensure its success. Long live the Soviet Union.
Interview Log Division P, 20th of October 1940. Attached is an extract from the transcript of an interview with Candidate 22 for Project Red Flea. Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov, interviewer is Agent Maxim.
State your name, age, and date of birth.
Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov. I am 29 years old, born on 24th April 1911.
And the date, please.
20th October 1940.
This interview is being conducted to determine if you are psychologically fit for this project. I want you to answer these questions honestly. Giving false information will be met with severe consequences. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Good. Why did you accept the invitation to be a candidate for this project?
2 main reasons, sir. The first is that I want to contribute more to the Soviet Union and Comrade Stalin than just being another rifleman on the front lines. Not that there is anything wrong with that.
And the second reason?
Because I was asked to.
What do you know of this project?
Rumors mostly. I know it's top secret, but that's all I know for certain. I've heard it's a super soldier program. But I've also heard it's about designing new tanks. Even heard it was about creating Baba Yaga. Utter rubbish, I tell you. Must have gotten drunk once they came up with that.
And you haven't been curious about this project?
Maybe a little, but if I get accepted, my questions will be answered. So I can wait.
Good. Would you kill an unarmed man?
If he was an enemy of the state, yes.
What if he was not?
In all honesty,
Yes.
probably not.
Would you disobey a superior officer to save any soldiers under your command?
No. My superiors are no doubt planning for the long run.
What if your superiors had ordered you to execute an unarmed man, who, as far as you knew, was not an enemy of the state?
I would, though not without some hesitation.
Understandable. That much is reflected in your handling of Basmakas in Turkestan. Well, I have everything I need. Thank you for your time, Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov.
Project Update Division P, 12th of April 1941.
By all accounts, the binding ritual was successfully performed on the 12th of February 1941. Silent Night was successfully bound to Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov, who will henceforth be designated as Red Flea. Red Flea has shown extensive control over its newfound capabilities, despite the physical and emotional stress of the procedure. The only noted physical difference to Red Flea's body following the procedure is a change in hair colour and pigmentation into that of an albino. Red Flea has also been shown to be able to direct its effects towards specific targets, capable of completely freezing a T-26 tank within minutes. We are currently in the process of testing the limits of Red Flea's capabilities. Red Flea is estimated to be ready for large-scale military operations by March 1942. Long live the Soviet Union.
Project Update Division P, 28th of September 1941.
As this update is free of the obligations of propaganda, I will be stark and clear. With the loss of Kiev, the Red Army is finding it increasingly difficult to stem the tide of the Nazi horde. High Command estimates that the Wehrmacht will reach Moscow within weeks. If we are to achieve victory and preserve the Soviet Union, Red Flea must be deployed as soon as possible. The General Secretary is officially ordering the process of training be sped up. Red Flea is to be deployed by winter of this year. If you cannot deliver this, the General Secretary will find someone who can. Long live the Soviet Union.
Project Review Division P, 20th of August 1944.
With the recent victories over the Wehrmacht, I believe it would be best to go over a brief outline of Red Flea's effectiveness over these past 3 years, especially as we advance towards Germany itself. Red Flea's capabilities have been found capable of greatly affecting the weather, much like Silent Night. The most notable example being the Battle of Stalingrad. During this operation, Red Flea used its capabilities to cause what has since been identified as the coldest winter in 100 years. Unfortunately, this extreme winter was also a hamper for our own forces, grounding the majority of the Soviet Air Force that was to take part in operations to encircle and destroy Wehrmacht forces in Stalingrad. Furthermore, Red Flea has shown an increasing detachment from its fellow soldiers, often being distant and cold. Many of our own personnel are afraid to make physical contact with Red Flea out of fear of frostbite. Red Flea makes little comment on this even when asked. Further examples of this detachment can be seen in the attached post-operation interview transcript. Nevertheless, Red Flea has played a decisive role in several major operations, both offensive and defensive. I recommend we maintain close observations of Red Flea, however, as its shifting behaviour means its loyalty may waver in the future. Long live the Soviet Union.
Interview Log Division P, 24th of May 1942. Attached is an extract from the transcript of an interview with Red Flea. Interview took place following the end of the Moscow Strategic Offensive Operation. Interviewer is Agent Maxim, who had helped Red Flea in its training prior to and immediately after the ritual.
State your name for the record, please.
Senior Sergeant Viktor Kuznetsov, codename Red Flea.
And the date, please.
20th of May 1942.
Excellent. Your mental capacity remains intact.
Is something the matter?
No, this is just a simple after-mission report. You are by no means an ordinary soldier, after all. So we want to make sure everything is going well.
Well, of course.
During your most recent operation, you were assigned to take out a German panzer brigade. A simple feat for you. Is this correct?
Yes.
During this operation, you were attacked by Alaric agents. They attempted to bind you to a pocket watch in a similar fashion to the ritual we performed on you. Is this correct?
Yes.
And in response, you froze 2 of these 3 Alaric agents solid, correct?
Yes.
Care to explain what happened to the 3rd agent?
I only froze his leg, so he would not be able to escape. That way he could be interrogated.
That would be the case, if not for the fact you killed him before we had the chance to bring him in for interrogation. You froze his head solid. By all accounts, it was a slow and brutal process. Are these accounts accurate?
Yes.
And what of the soldiers who were attempting to apprehend that agent? They were frozen as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did they do?
They got in the way. Do you expect an artillery piece to cease firing just because a couple of friendly Soldiers were in the way.
So why did you freeze the agent in the first place?
It was my understanding that the Germans had to suffer after what they did to Russia.
An understandable reaction. But this is not the first incident like this reported. Each one was justified with similar excuses. Why did you feel the need to justify these events with a desire for interrogation or anything else along those lines?
Revenge doesn't look good on official reports.
Notice of Project Cancellation Division P, 18th of December 1948.
As of the 18th of December 1948, Project Red Flea is to be cancelled and disbanded effective immediately, under the direct order of the General Secretariat of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. This cancellation has been ordered following the incident on the 15th of December 1948, during which Red Flea escaped Secure Facility Vera. The precise cause of this incident is currently under investigation, but the consequences of it are clear. Red Flea is currently wandering the wastes of Siberia, as it is a perfect environment for it to thrive in. At present, all GRU-P personnel who attempted to locate and/or apprehend Red Flea during and immediately after its escape have been killed. Therefore, until Red Flea has been returned to GRU-P control, Project Red Flea and all research not related to the reacquirement of Red Flea are to be halted until further notice. For this specific project, we ask that you destroy any and all documentation related to both Silent Night and Red Flea, unless ordered to do so otherwise by the Office of the General Secretariat of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Suppress any reported sighting of Red Flea by either military personnel or civilians. All personnel associated with Project Red Flea are to be redirected into locating and recapturing Red Flea. Patrols of Red Flea's last known location are to be organised immediately. If Red Flea is located, the binding ritual is to be attempted. The item Red Flea is to be bound to will be left at your discretion. Long live the Soviet Union.
This is the last known document related to SCP-6051 in GRU-P archives. Following this incident, SCP-6051 remained in Siberia. The GRU-P attempted to recapture it several times to no avail. SCP-6051 entered the knowledge of the Foundation on the 15th of September 1987. With the collapse of the Soviet Union imminent, the GRU-P contacted the Foundation in order to hand over the responsibility of SCP-6051 to them, as they lacked the funding and resources for further recapture efforts. The GRU-P offered to hand over all documents related to SCP-6051 that had not been destroyed. In exchange, the Foundation would provide them short-term financial aid. These terms were agreed to, and the Foundation immediately moved in to attempt to contain SCP-6051. All containment attempts failed. Video log transcript Containment Attempt 5, date 26th of November 1989. Exploration Team Mobile Task Force Epsilon 9 Fire Eaters. At the beginning of the log, MTF Epsilon 9 were travelling to SCP-6051's last recorded position. The transport was fitted with a, at the time, prototype video and audio recording system, while the members of MTF Epsilon 9 were equipped with heated suits and incendiary weapons to help combat SCP-6051 in the event of violent confrontation. Begin log.
Radios are on. Can everyone hear me?
Check.
Check.
Check. Reading you loud and clear.
Overwatch Command, do you copy?
This is Command. We read you.
Roger, Command. We are approaching the estimated location of SCP-6051. ETA 3 minutes.
You sure these suits will keep us safe? Lab coats certainly seem to think so, and I trust their opinion.
Not sure how I feel. I mean, there were 5 attempts prior to this. Doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Not sure why we're even trying to talk to it at this point.
As far as we can tell, it has never attacked without being provoked. This means it must still be capable of reason. It's the humane thing to do.
At this point, the transport immediately stops moving.
Dallas, status report.
I don't know what's happened. The truck just stopped moving, the wheel won't even budge.
Command, this is Daniels. The transport is stuck. I'm sending Dallas and Walker out to investigate. Pushkin and I will remain inside the transport. Confirm?
Confirmed. Make any repairs as quickly as you can. Don't want to get caught out in the open.
Alright then. Like I said, Dallas. Walker, head out and take a look.
Dallas and Walker leave the transport, investigating the vehicle's engine.
Walker, any chance we can get this vehicle moving?
Not really. It's frozen.
How frozen?
Solid.
I thought the engine was heated to stop it from freezing.
It is.
Command, SCP-6051 has disabled our vehicle. We are likely to encounter it momentarily. We are estimated to be located 5 miles away from its last known location. We'll try to make it back, but I cannot promise that we will.
Copy. Set up a perimeter around the transport and keep an eye out for SCP-6051. Good luck.
Thank you, Command.
Daniels, Walker, and Pushkin do as instructed, forming a perimeter around the transport as Dallas attempts repairs.
Dallas, can you heat it up? Melt the ice?
If I use a fire, maybe. But that will take time, and I doubt the engine will work after being frozen like this.
Daniels, movement, 2 o'clock.
All MTF Epsilon 9 members look at the direction Walker was facing. SCP-6051 is seen approaching them. All MTF Epsilon 9 members assumed defensive positions, maintaining focus on SCP-6051.
Command, SCP-6051 has been sighted. Proceeding as ordered.
Copy.
Pushkin, you're up.
Viktor Kuznetsov, we are from the SCP Foundation and would like to offer you safety and peace with our organization. Please submit to containment and no one needs to be harmed.
Leave me.
I'm sorry?
Why do your superiors send so many of you? I do not belong near the world of man, but nor do I belong in a cell. If you leave now, no one has to die.
We simply cannot let you roam around. Trust us. You can be a lot safer with the Foundation.
Have you ever heard of the theater of cruelty?
I'm sorry?
I read about it once. It was supposed to shock audiences and disrupt the relationship between them and the actors. Break down those barriers and reveal what you truly are. Let's find out if it applied to you as well. Don't forget, I asked you to leave.
Upon finishing this sentence, SCP-6051 watched as Walker, Rain, and Dallas are killed instantly. Analysis of the footage indicated they died of frostbite. Daniels and Pushkin open fire upon SCP-6051 with limited effect. Pushkin throws a thermite grenade, which detonates and causes SCP-6051 to flee.
That should keep him at bay. Got a plan, Pushkin?
If we're quick, maybe we can make a break for it.
Into Siberia?
Got a better idea?
Ready when you are.
Before this plan could be executed, SCP-6051 returned and activated its anomalous properties, killing Pushkin and gravely wounding Daniels, with his death only averted due to the timely burning of thermite.
That will not last long. We should talk before it runs out. There is not much else we can do while we wait.
You don't have to do this. You'll be safe with us.
I gave you a chance to leave, but you did not take it. Regardless, being locked up in a room for the rest of my existence, I have no intention of being sealed away again. Not that you can, but this saves us all time and manpower.
If you want to be left alone, why are you attacking us? You can just as easily force us to leave.
Why does fire burn? Or water drown? Simply a side effect of too much OLED. I cannot control that.
Then what do you want?
Your Foundation wants to put me in a box because they fear I will turn into a monster and plot world domination. I have no such grand plans.
At this point, SCP-6051 changes its gaze and looks towards the camera on the transport.
I'm sure you have read up on the Red Flea. I did not storm the Kremlin or the White House. I do not belong anywhere but here. You can continue to try and contain me, costing you greatly in money and men. Or you can simply allow me to remain where I belong, and I promise not to take one step in any of man's cities. If I break this promise, you may deploy all the napalm you want on me.
So what? You want to be left alone? That's it?
In short, yes. I see that thermite is almost gone. This was delightful. I don't often manage full conversations. It is a shame we cannot keep talking. I bid you Prashinia.
As the cold weather intensifies, the recorder's view is blocked by the snow until the footage cuts out. End log. Closing statement. While it is in theory possible to eventually secure SCP-6051, given the cost in manpower in failed attempts to do so, along with the fact it is effectively self-contained within the Siberia wilderness, this has been deemed unnecessary. It was ruled that containment protocols would be updated to observe SCP-6051 rather than attempt to capture, though direct intervention is to remain an option if containment were to be breached. SCP-6051, General Winter. My first thoughts after reading this SCP made me think of SCP-076. They're very similar stories. An entity is captured and contained, and efforts are taken to try and weaponize it. You know, classic military thinking. The SCP Foundation tried to weaponize 076, and the GRU-P tried to weaponize 6051, both with terrible outcomes. There was a massive loss of life, a massive containment breach, and to this day you could argue that neither are really contained. To understand 6051, let's create a timeline of events. We'll start from the beginning and work our way forwards. In 1934, the GRU-P was formed by Stalin to investigate the paranormal after a high-ranking Bolshevik leader was killed. History would go on to say that the leader was shot, but Stalin knew there were additional anomalous powers at play. His paranoia that such an act on one of his own could happen again would later fuel the fires that would forge the GRU-P. The GRU-P are kind of like the USSR's version of the SCP Foundation, very loosely speaking. They don't have the knowledge, or the expertise, or the experience that the Foundation do, and they seem hell-bent on using anomalous entities and objects to instead attack enemies of the USSR. They also gather intelligence from other countries that might have hostile intent against the USSR by way of utilizing anomalous objects. Since the collapse of the USSR, the GRU-P have kind of retreated into the shadows. They still exist, but on a much smaller scale. If you want to learn more about the GRU-P, I would recommend you watch Exploring Series' video on them. You can find a link to that just down below. Right, so in 1934, the GRU-P is formed by a paranoid Stalin. In 1935, the GRU-P begins to look into this entity. It keeps cropping up in rumours amongst soldiers and has been seen several times by members of the military over the last century, going as far back as 1812 when the French retreated from Russia. Not much is known about this entity other than that it is blinding white, emits only cold, and likes to watch battles in spectator mode. By 1936, the GRU-P have managed to contain the anomaly, binding it to a piece of granite by way of a pagan ritual. By now, Hitler had been Chancellor for 3 years, the Nuremberg laws had been put in place, and the Nazis were beginning to look at their neighbouring countries with hungry eyes. The GRU-P put forth 2 potential uses for SCP-6051, the first being an agricultural one. This would boost farming conditions and provide more food for their people. This would also move their main food source out from what is now Ukraine into East Russia, which would be much easier to defend in case of war. The second one, and the course of action they took, was to instead try and turn this entity into a weapon to use against their enemies. 1938 rolls around and tensions are starting to increase across Europe. The GRU-P are ordered to begin work on a new project, codenamed Red Flea. At the same time, military funding begins pouring into the project to get this weapon working as quickly as possible. It is now 1939 and Stalin is starting to get very worried by what he is seeing in Europe. He makes a non-aggression pact with Hitler, thinking this will ensure the USSR's safety. Alas, Hitler would not uphold his end of the deal in the coming years. As we enter 1940, things begin to kick up a gear. The GRU-P report back that it is impossible to communicate in any way with this entity. In fact, the only kind of reaction they are getting out of it is it gets the giggles when it sees warfare. The project is at a dead end, and the Germans are quickly closing the gap between them and the USSR. Germany had already invaded Poland only the year before, and they were beginning to head east. Plans for a new type of communication with the entity are rejected in favour of trials to bind the entity to a human using the very same ritual they utilised to bind it to the granite stone. Their thought process being that maybe a human can control the anomaly if it is bound to them. A very promising and patriotic candidate, Viktor Kuznetsov, is selected for the procedure. 1941. Germany begins its advance into the Soviet Union, shattering the pact Hitler made with Stalin. They storm across Ukraine and seize Kyiv. With Soviet high command feeling the pinch as the Nazis quickly advance towards Moscow, they order the GRU-P to have the weapon ready for the winter of that year, and if they can't, they'll find someone who can. We jump forward to 1944, and Project Red Flea would seem to be a complete success. Not only has it stemmed the advance of the Nazis, it has also turned the war on the Eastern Front back on the enemy. Stalin uses this to move towards Germany. It hasn't all been plain sailing though. While Red Flea may have proved instrumental in the Battle of Stalingrad, using its abilities to cause the coldest winter in 100 years, the stall in the enemy advanced this cause also hampered the Soviet defense and counterattack as well. Furthermore, his comrades are scared to be near him, fearing frostbite, and he makes no attempt to interact with them, preferring isolation. We are then given an interview from 1942 with Red Flea. A GRU-P agent called Maxim questions Red Flea on his actions after he encountered a group of SS agents. They attempted a binding ritual of their own. Red Flea responded by freezing two and incapacitating one for later interrogation. However, he would later instead slowly freeze the agent's head in a very brutal manner. He would also then freeze the Soviet soldiers who tried to arrest the agent. Red Flea would put this down to essentially friendly fire, that they got in the way, and that was it. Despite this shift in behaviour, the GRU-P decided to take no action, as Red Flea was nonetheless still killing Germans and was essential for the war effort. We now jump ahead to 1948. The war is won and a thing of the past. The problem is, the USSR now have a sentient superweapon with nothing to do. Much like when the Foundation had run out of jobs for 076 to do, what happened then happens now. Red Flea goes AWOL and makes his escape. He kills everyone in the facility and runs for the Siberian wilderness. The GRU-P attempts to cover up their tracks by destroying any documentation relating to Red Flea and begin recovery efforts with no success. Moving forward to 1987, the fall of the USSR is imminent and the GRU-P are running very low on funding and resources. Along with a number of other items, the GRU-P hand over Red Flea to the SCP Foundation in return for some short-term financial backing. The terms are agreed and the SCP Foundation now begin hunting down SCP-6051. We are given just one of the supposedly many containment attempts of SCP-6051. A group of fire eaters are sent out to try and get SCP-6051 to willingly submit to containment. 6051 is like, nah, and kills them all, which is very typical of any MTF mission. It's a wonder there are any MTF left at this point. In the encounter though, SCP-6051 reassures the Foundation that he has no intention of bringing down humanity or plotting world domination. He wants only to be left in peace. He promises that if the Foundation leave him to remain where he belongs, he will not take one step in any populated area, and if he does, they can drop as much napalm on him as they want. In the end, it would seem Victor and the original entity shared their priorities with each other. After serving his country and defeating the Nazis, Victor just wanted to retire and live a life of peace and solitude, while the entity just wanted to return to the wilderness. The Foundation had no other option but to agree to 6051's terms. Evidently, more containment attempts would be nothing more than a waste of more personnel and resources. Containment measures are instead focused on just monitoring the entity now and making sure it upholds its end of the bargain. And I applaud the Foundation for this. They could very easily just drop a whole load of bombs on it or nuke it and put it down to weapons testing, but so long as they leave it alone, it's going to leave everyone else alone. And I really think this goes to show just how much more damage these anomalous organisations cause in the long run. This was a completely harmless entity until the GRU-P got involved. Sometimes you don't need to lock it up like the Foundation would. You don't need to destroy it like the GOC would. You don't need to sell it like Marshall Carter and Darkwood. And you don't need to weaponize it like the Chaos Insurgency and the GRU-P would, evidently. Sometimes if you just leave these things alone, they will leave you alone. And if you meddle with these things and experiment on stuff that you do not understand, you could end up creating something you can neither fight and you can neither contain. And that concludes SCP-6051. I hope you enjoyed this video and be sure to like and subscribe if you did. As with all my videos, it takes a heck of a lot of time and effort to put all these together, so please consider joining the Patreon, which is very quickly becoming the only thing keeping this channel financially afloat. On that note, big thanks to the incredible patrons who do keep the channel going, please consider joining them, and thank you to Rick Trexon, Generals Alert, Wings of a Meme, Big Mac, Nicholas, Number of the Yeast, Infinite Tune, Splendy the Tear God, Razman, Guardian of Energy, Luna Wilson, Tazmashik, and Sam Samuel. Big thanks to the council members Arctoast Kibara, Captain Core, Hunter Killer, Catclone, Tree, Little Sub, Monarch, Kikarin, Gammatorm, Deep Dark Pain, Your Local Fisherman and Bane. And huge thanks to the administrators Andre Bashert, Viger, Kamana, Panzer, Techno Ninja, Sonic, GFHD and Man Manor. Thank you all for watching, I will see you all soon, and take care.